I was chatting with a young man the other day. When I say a young man, of course, I'm talking about somebody in their late 20s. In fact, he was the same age as my youngest child. So he was about 28. And I was chatting to him. Well, actually, he was interviewing me for his channel. And I said to him at the end, I wonder if I could possibly play this on my channel because you raised so many interesting points. One of the areas of discussion was, I suppose, the difference between me and my generation and him and his generation. It did seem that there's a lot of differences and perspectives between the two generations. Of course, I'm the generation that remembers the analog way and spent most of my life in the analog way, and the last 10, 15 years seeing the beginnings of the digital way. And so it gives an interesting perspective. And what he said was, well, you know, your generation is pretty much the last of what he called the humans, people who got on with one another and knew how to do things. Whereas his generation, he said, were very much closed off because they're stuck rigidly behind mobile phones and they don't talk to one another, and they're pretty much enjoying screens, but they don't really engage with the greater world. Whereas my generation were born into the greater world, ran around the fields, climbed mountains or big hills, and had to do things in the old-fashioned way, if you like. And this was interesting, I thought, but the thing that I picked up most was the fact he said, your generation, you know, he said, my observation is that you just talk to anybody. Your generation are quite happy at the bus stop, for example, to express something about the weather, you know, inane conversations that you might have with your neighbour over the dividing fence, just ordinary things, or complimenting one another on the way you're dressed. Oh, that's a very nice jacket. I like the way what you've done to your hair. My partner, the lovely Julia, does that all the time. She's extremely complimentary. And I said, yes, this is just a sort of a natural thing. You would engage in conversation with a complete stranger at various points in a queue. If there's a long queue and you're hanging about, and it might be something that you're both having a mutual moan about. Of course, the weather is the number one thing that most people talk about in this country because it changes so much, and these days you can sort of look up at the clouds and sort of make some wry comment about the chemtrails or the geoengineering that's going on, and you're sort of testing the water to see if other people are, like you, awake to those sort of things. And if they're not, you don't press it. Or you might just sort of mention something about cash and you go, oh, I see you're paying in cash. It's good to keep cash alive, isn't it? Those sort of conversations which start to hopefully open up the other person so that they can go, oh, you're a bit like me. You're aware that there are these CBDCs, or that they're trying to restrict cash, and you know, cash is a private transaction and you don't want the big conch of the government peering into your affairs. And I said, but does that not happen with the younger generation? He said, no, he says it's actually quite tricky. He says, I go down to the gym, but if I go down to the gym, it's a kind of a nod or a watcher, and that's about it. You know, he says it's very hard to elicit a conversation because younger people, it seems, are very guarded. And in the conversation that I had with him, it transpired, of course, they're just not used to doing it. They're not being shown how to have a conversation with a complete stranger. That notion of talking about something completely inane and just enjoying the moment, even though it's pretty meaningless what you're saying, but the meaning is you're just engaging with a completely different human being and just having a moment. It's not going to change the world, but it's part of life, it's part of humanity. And I was saying to him, I said, but this is something that is nice. It's a lovely thing to be able to just have that moment. You sit on a bus or a train, or you find something in common with either you and them or the environment. Like, oh, blooming, the traffic is slow today, isn't it? Oh, yeah, I tell you, it was slow like this yesterday. Was it? Well, what happened then? Well, there was a car broken. Oh, it's a nuisance when these cars, I wish people would. And so the conversation just develops out of nothing. But it does seem that the younger generation have not been trained this sort of thing. And it made me wonder, maybe that's because kids these days are plonked in front of the television, these massive, great big TVs that we have, and if they're sitting and having their dinner, they're having TV dinners in front of the TV. They're not around the table in which the family are getting together to have these basic conversations. Well, what was your day like? Yeah, no, it was all right. We had to do this and we had this problem. And I noticed on the way back there was a chap who'd fallen off his bike, so I went to help him. You know, whatever the inane sort of nonsense is, it's practicing communicating with one another. And although it seems like it's just not important, it is so important. So when you're at meetings with strangers, perhaps for a job or whatever, you know how to engage and keep that conversation going. There's no sort of dodgy old pauses where you suddenly feel, oh, I don't know what to say now, and all of that. But young people, it seems, are losing the art, and it is an art, to engage and communicate with one another and share their feelings. And there's nothing wrong. People these days are unable to express how they feel about something. You know, good morning, how are you? Yeah, no, I'm all right. When actually what they want to say is, good morning, how are you? Actually, I'm feeling bloody lousy. I ran over the cat earlier today, and now we've got to, and I'm just feeling very depressed. There's that sense that you're not allowed to talk about it, or otherwise you talk too much. And it's knowing the boundaries of those conversations. Nobody likes somebody who is like, oh yeah, I'll just keep talking and talking and talking. It's all about me, 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 me. And we do also, I mean, that's the reverse side of it, is that we are in this me, 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 me culture, is, people putting things up on Instagram and places like that, and Facebook and all these other things. Hey, look at me, I'm important. Look what I've got. I've just bought this. I've got this lifestyle. Ha, 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 you haven't and I have. And again, that's the wrong side. It's the essence of you. These moments where you just have that moment and somebody's dropped their walking stick. It's all right, I'll pick it up. There you go. That's a lovely walking stick. Where did you get that then? Oh, nice. Oh, I see you. Yeah, you're limping. And are you all right? Can I help you do something? Let me carry your bags down to the bus stop. Those moments, those simple, intimate moments with another member of society that you have not met, that you don't know, is just so important. And you walk away just smiling at somebody. This is the thing. I mean, I feel quite happy if I smile at someone, you catch their eye and you smile at them, whether they're the same sex or whether they're a member of the opposite sex. It doesn't overly bother me. It's not that you're, if you smile as a young lady, say in my case, coming along, and you just catch their eye and you just smile, doesn't mean I'm trying to pick you up and want to take you into the bushes, thanks very much. But I feel that some people, particularly the younger, sort of feel, oh no, I can't do that because there's this feeling, you and them, there's a sort of distance between you. And of course, the pandemic that we saw people masked up and told to keep their distance from one another, that didn't help whatsoever. And we've got to go back into forming the fact that all of us are the same, and we're on this planet, we're having an amazing experience. If we're spiritual beings in human bodies, doesn't really matter. We're having this amazing experience, and we should all try as much as we can, and I know it's a word that's overused, and that's to love each other, not in the sexual way, unless you've found your proper partner and stuff, but in that sort of universal, unconditional, hello, how are you, can I help you type way. And just engage it, brightening somebody's life. What's the point of two people sitting at a bus stop or waiting in a queue and they're just being silent, not acknowledging one another? Two humans. I mean, we do that all the time. On the tube, the tube on the underground is one of those places in particular, isn't it? Have you noticed how you're standing, you're crammed in like this, you're all invading each other's space? and yet nobody says a word. And however, if the tube breaks down, or train, you know, the train breaks down, or you're in cars and there's a massive great car jam, and you're all sitting there kind of going, and eventually some of you start getting out the car. If suddenly the conversation starts, there's such a relief, isn't it? On the tube where you're all like this, facing one another, going, oh, and then something happens, whatever it might be, you know, or the lights go out and you go, oh, blimey, I wonder if we're going to be stuck here forever. And there's a huge sense of relief that suddenly it's almost as if you've been given permission to be able to talk and express yourselves, because up until then you've sort of dared, oh, I'm touching them, mustn't touch, you know, it's all this. And yet we are all the same type of people, aren't we? We are human beings of one way or another. We're in these bodies and we want to communicate. We want to say hello. We want to be recognized as another member of that tribe. And we should. So I left this conversation with this chap, Reese, and I thought to myself, you know, these young people, they're relying really on our generation to teach them how to engage with one another. So my thought was, what I must do is try and engage with younger people so much more frequently, you know, in this sort of just basic, general, everyday, you know, trying to insult them or query who they are and what they're doing, or trying to pick them up or anything. It's just that sort of general, everyday, pretty much inane conversation. Hello, well, oh, that's a lovely top. Where did you get that? That's nice. I like that. You look great. Just, you know, that sort of thing. Helping them know that it's normal. After all, they're the next generation, and we need that next generation to pick up on humanity and being a real upstanding member of community who can communicate with one another.